Okay, I'm with Jon Spiers, who is the Chief Executive of the Royal Free Charity. Hi, John.
Good morning.
Thank you for doing this. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you for having me.
And what we're going to do is we're going to try and get an idea of what's going on with the charity, even though most of us know what's going on, because we're forever promoting it all the time, as I'm sure you know. So let's say make a start by knowing what your job involves.
Okay, so all NHS trusts have a charity. They have done since the founding of the NHS back in the 40s, and really that's in recognition of the fact that lots of people, when they have an experience with the NHS, want to say thank you afterwards. They're grateful for the care they've received or their families received, and you can't give directly to the NHS. So if you decide that you want to give a gift, you can't give directly to a hospital, you have to give through a charity. So the Royal Free Charity exists to support the hospitals of the Royal Free London, so that's Royal Free in Hampstead, Barnet and Chase Farm, and all of the different satellite sites across North London that we support as well. And our job really is to be that conduit between people who want to support the NHS and the NHS itself. So we raise money, we then give that money back to the trust through a series of grants, services, equipment that we might purchase, all of which is focused on improving the experience for staff and for patients. We're a bit unusual in a few ways, so we offer services directly, which is not a thing a lot of NHS charities do, but the Royal Free Charity runs all of the volunteering across North Central London for our trusts. We run a complementary therapy service, so we've got massage therapists, for example, that will go in and support patients and staff. And we've got a team of welfare and benefits advisors, so they support patients, generally speaking, at the point of discharge, who have to navigate the Byzantine world of the DWP and might need some help to understand what benefits they're entitled to and get things like a blue badge for their car or more suitable housing, for example, if they've gone through a traumatic experience that's led to them needing the care of the NHS.
So you came on board pre-pandemic?
Just during the pandemic, actually, yeah, in 2020. So an interesting time to join the NHS and to be involved in supporting it. I'd previously worked in the charity sector for about 20 years, so I've worked in a whole range of different organisations, and I thought to myself, this feels like a time when I want to be part of the NHS, and being in an NHS charity felt the best way to do that.
Because we were talking about before we started the interview, and it became a very important part, particularly for the patients. Royal Free Radio was important, but also you did an amazing job with supporting the staff.
We did. In many ways, actually, we spent a lot more time and money supporting staff during that period than we did patients, partly because there were so many fewer patients coming through the doors, and those that were in the hospitals tended to be very, very sick indeed. So during that period, we thanks to the support of our local communities, we managed to put in a huge number of supports for staff. So we were funding things like mental health support. So for those staff who were understandably traumatised and exhausted by that experience, we put in place hands-on care for them. We built a supermarket, so some of you might remember that period where you couldn't get into supermarkets. We built a supermarket in the Royal Free, which was for those staff that simply didn't have the time between shifts to go and get their shopping, and they could come in and pick up their essentials from us. We put in a huge amount of resource into actually helping people say thank you back to the NHS. So lots of our hospitals have got displays that we put up during that period from children and adults saying thank you for the care that me and my family have received, that really made a difference to the morale of staff. It was a very, very difficult time to be part of the NHS.
What they went through was just unbelievable, and the service they gave the patients during that difficult time. I can remember talking to one of the nurses who had marks on her face after she'd taken the protective equipment off. Literally score marks on her face. It was just horrendous.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, there was a real sea change in people's attitude to the NHS and their desire to say thank you. So one of the things that we saw pre-pandemic, my colleagues told me about, is that probably a lot of people didn't know that they could support the NHS. So lots of people might have known that there was a League of Friends or possibly saw volunteers in some hospitals, but they didn't really connect to the fact that there was something they directly could do. During that pandemic, obviously, there was this enormous groundswell of public support, lots and lots of people wanting to give money, lots and lots of people wanting to give time where they could as well. And we've really sort of rode the wave of that, and we've continued to show people the way that they can support their local hospitals. And our volunteer numbers are up compared to the pandemic. Our income has gone up considerably because I think there's a real normalisation of this idea that you can give to the NHS if you're grateful for the care that you've received.
I mean, is that a good time to get them when they're coming out of hospital? I'm very, very grateful for what you do. I mean, I have yet to find anybody that complains. It's the reverse.
I think you're right. Generally speaking, people have a very high standard of care. They have a good experience. Obviously, where they don't, we need to make sure that we improve that. And that's one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing, is understanding where there are problems and where we can improve them. But yes, I mean, that's the point at which I think people tend to want to give back. So if people come and spontaneously talk to us, it's almost always when they or a loved one has just been discharged from hospital. They've been through an experience that in some cases can be quite life-changing, and they are left with the memory of that care that they've received from the doctors and nurses and the other staff in the hospitals, and they want to do something to say thank you, and we are the perfect vehicle for that.
Sure. I didn't realise actually that you can't give money to the NHS, but I should have known that. So you're now dealing with, am I right, basically three hospitals.
That's right. Yeah.
So we've got Hampstead.
Yep.
And then we've got Chase Farm.
Yep.
And Barnet.
Correct.
And soon another one.
Indeed, yeah. So in due course, North Mid. Yeah.
I'm pleased that's coming on board. They've been talking about that for quite a while now.
And you've been broadcasting in North Mid for some years.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
There's one or two issues with some of the equipment's a bit antiquated, but we're looking to overcome that, and we're hoping to also do something similar with Barnet, but that's a long way away. Mm-hmm. It's to do with technology and how much money we can spend and that sort of thing. But we've got a few ideas.
Good.
It would appear that most people, apart from the elderly, have smart devices. Mm-hmm. And we're looking to see if we can just have a Wi-Fi for hospital radio.
That's a great idea.
So they can tune in without any expense. But of course, people who are elderly and can't deal with smart devices, we have to do something else for them.
Yeah.
But we're digressing. So that's the three hospitals. I have to say, the one in Hampstead, there's a load of stuff goes on there, just day-to-day stuff, where people are playing instruments in the hallway, and it's incredible.
We do. I mean, our music volunteers work across all three hospitals. So
do they?
Yeah, they're quite visible in Hampstead because often they're in that main entranceway. But yeah, we've got musicians, guitarists. I think we've got a harpist at the moment as well. That will go into lots and lots of our wards. So at Barnet, for example, they go onto the elderly care wards and they'll play songs from back in the day. We've got art therapists as well who we fund that go in and help people create as a way of coping with what they're going through. We've been joined by another charity that provides play therapists that go onto children's wards and keep children entertained. So you can always see the charity wherever you go. Lots and lots of our volunteers and our staff are in their purple polo shirts, and you'll see them at the front entrances of the hospital helping people find their way. But you'll also often find them behind the scenes, doing all of those things that actually help the hospitals keep running, whether that's restocking inventory, whether that's helping with meal times, all sorts of different jobs. I think we've got about 25 different volunteer roles across the trust, from the really highly visible meeting and greeting through to very, very technical jobs supporting quite complex parts of the job.
But that's such a valuable thing, the meet and greet. No one knows where they're going, myself included.
I know. I mean, even when you've been to one of our hospitals several times before, and I say this as someone that works in them, it's very, very easy to get lost. And having someone whose sole purpose is to get you where you need to be and to actually make you feel okay about what you're about to go through, I think is really important. I
often get asked, because I have to wear the ID as we all do when we're walking around, and I know Chase Farm quite well, but I was over at Hampstead the other day. Not a clue.
We won't put you on the front. We won't put you on the front desk in that case.
We have a request collector actually that spends a lot of time in Hampstead.
Yep.
And we get a good selection of people that are giving requests, which is really nice.
Excellent. Oh, I'm pleased to hear.
Because we have request shows going out every weekday between 8 and 10. Mm-hmm. And we're getting, on average, 12 for each programme.
That's good.
So, and interesting, because what people, our request collector, Mags, is very clever, and she gets them to talk about themselves. Mm. And when you're actually doing the request, interesting what they say and what they sort of talk about their lives. And as I said to you, everyone has got to say thank you to one member of staff.
Absolutely.
Without fail.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You have to be a certain type of person to work in care in the NHS. And they all seem to have this magic formula where they just care about, when they would during the pandemic, they weren't worried about how many hours they were working and how much stuff was on their faces, and just amazing. We're so lucky to have them, we really are.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a great culture of service.
Okay, so I've just got a note here about the charity's increased focus on cancer, and you purchased a new Quadra PET CT scanner. I have no idea what that is.
Let me tell you. So PET CT scanners are used in quite a range of different conditions, but very heavily used in cancer. So PET CT is used to help, for example, guide radiotherapy. It's used to help diagnose cancers as well, so to establish where the primary cancer is and if there are any secondary cancers. They're very, very large, very, very expensive pieces of kit. The NHS as a whole is desperately short of PET scanners. The charity was asked to consider buying this new Quadra PET CT. Now, there are no Quadra PET CTs in the country. This is the first one that we've bought. In fact, there are only a handful in the world.
Wow.
It's a very, very cutting edge piece of equipment, and it's incredibly sensitive. So a typical CT scan is relatively high definition, but the Quadra is substantially better than the sort of standard specification, and that means we can pick up smaller cancers.
That's just what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, so we can be, it's much more sensitive in that. It can also, because it delivers a lower dose of radiation, it can be used in a different type of patient. So with children, for example, who are experiencing cancer, you don't want to expose them to large amounts of radiation, so it's very difficult to scan them, and you don't want to do it very often. The Quadra uses much, much lower dosage, so it's much, much safer for paediatric patients. And really interestingly, from a research perspective, it's the first scanner which we can use to scan completely healthy volunteers. So one of the areas of research that's really underdeveloped in the UK is scanning research. It's not a field that we're particularly advanced in, and that's because we can't yet ethically give high doses of radiation to healthy volunteers to understand what's going on. We can do that with the Quadra PET CT, so we're really delighted to have funded that thanks to the support of a huge number of donors.
And is this like a big tunnel that you go into, the same as the others?
It is, yeah, it's like a giant donut. So
Right.
It needs its own room with shielding, because obviously there is still radiation involved.
Yeah.
It's the full length of the body, so it can take a full body scan in one single scan, which a typical PET CT scanner can't do. But yes, it's very, very large. It's quite noisy when it gets turned on, and it looks like essentially a very long extended donut. The patient lies on a tray that takes them into the scanner. Their scan happens incredibly quickly, because that's one of the other good things about this machine. It's remarkably fast as well.
Right.
And then they come back out, and you've got the images to look at and talk through with the patient.
And how do you go about raising? I mean, it must be a lot of money.
That was a very significant amount of money. That cost around £5.8 million.
Wow.
So, yeah, one of the biggest purchases that we've made in a very, very long time. We already had some money in an equipment fund that we were able to put to that, but the rest of it came from local donors. So local individuals, corporates, trusts and foundations who wanted to support the cutting edge of medicine in their hospital and came together around that particular piece of equipment.
That's fantastic. It really is. So we are the only ones that have it.
We are in the UK the only trust that has one of these scanners. I am sure other people want them, and in fact, I talked to the team the other week, and they said a number of other hospitals have come to visit to look at it to understand how we are using it and then how they could use it. So I suspect we will be the first of many,
Right.
but we're delighted to have brought the first one to the UK.
And do they ship people in from, say, Barnet and other?
Yes, so it forms part of the sort of scanning operation for the whole trust. So it will be available to patients who are being treated in all the hospitals if that's what they need. Because it's much faster, we can put a huge number more patients through it than a typical scanner. So
Right.
actually, it just in having it instead of a normal scanner, we are able to really significantly grow the number of patients that we can scan, and that means it's much easier to make it available across the trust.
So how long does the scan take?
It will depend on what you
Full
need
body.
done. let's assume it's a relatively standard procedure, and you're having a scan, for example, to check the progression of your cancer.
Yes.
You would probably be in and out in 15 minutes. So that
Wow,
would
that's very
include getting you
quick.
on the tray, positioning you in the right place, and getting you off again, probably in around about a quarter of an hour, which compares to around about half an hour or
Yeah.
so for a normal scan. So we've halved that time, and the team have had to work really hard to think about actually how they move patients around that scanning suite, because you obviously have to take questions, ask them questions. You have to prepare them for it. They've got into a rhythm of doing that on a half-hour cycle. Now they need to do it in a 15-minute cycle. They've really thought very carefully about how to do that. So there are high numbers of patients going through every single day. Almost like waiting for a bus. One comes along, they get scanned, they move on. The next person comes in. It's a well-oiled machine.
Strange enough, a pal of mine, who's not very well at the moment, was taken from Barnet to Hampstead for a full body scan. So
That may well have been this machine.
I
Yeah.
would assume, yeah.
Yeah.
I would assume. That's just amazing, and £5 million is just so much money.
Yeah, and we're obviously so grateful for the support of the community. I mean, the people really came together actually very quickly as well. Came together and supported it, and it was a joy to go and talk to people about it and get their support. It was really obvious from the moment you started having a conversation with someone that this was something that was really going to change the game for cancer. Everybody knows we've got a big cancer challenge in the NHS. Everybody knows we've got more and more people presenting. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, lots of people presenting slightly later than we might want them to, which means treatment's going to be more difficult. Anything we can do to help our trust see people quicker, get them diagnosed faster, get them into treatment quicker, obviously is really important. So we were delighted to help.
So what's the next project?
So we're always
I'm sure you've got one.
We're always very busy, but the next big project is a surgical robot. So anyone who's had surgery recently will probably be aware that there is a really increasing use of robotics in surgery in the NHS. It's more precise. It results in quicker recovery times. Surgeons absolutely love it because they can do more complex work. Those are quite expensive pieces of kit. At the moment, there's one surgical robot, which is at the Royal Free Hospital, and that's used primarily for kidney cancer and liver cancer and a few other conditions as well. All of the surgeons are really, really interested in what they can do to increase their use of robots. So we've been asked whether we could purchase one that will be primarily used for patients with bowel cancer and hepatobiliary, which is liver and pancreatic disease. We're just literally next week going to start the appeal. So we'll be going out to the public to ask for £2.2 million to purchase a second robot.
Should be a piece of cake after the other one.
We hope we can do it quickly. The need is definitely there. I think we are hopeful again that our local community will come together and support it. It's a very tangible thing, and they look amazing. So it's a really incredible piece of kit to actually visualise,
Right.
and obviously makes a massive difference to anybody being treated for cancer. So hopefully, really, really good for patients, improves their experience, improves their outcomes. Also, really good for staff. One of the things that the NHS struggles with sometimes is attracting and retaining the best. The really, really good surgeons, for example, do have the choice of where they might want to go and work. The more we can have the latest technology, things like surgical robots, the more likely we are in our trust to attract and keep the best people here, so that they're supporting the people of North London.
And you also do a few fun things as well, don't you?
We do quite a lot of fun things, yeah.
Like jumping out of aircrafts and...
There are people doing that all the time, yeah. People do abseils, skydives, you name it, marathons. I mean, not all of that sounds fun to me, but they enjoy it, I think.
Normally, but wasn't there some kind of abseiling by one of the buildings in...
I think we've done that. We've done that in the past. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. We may be doing it again. We're seeing whether we can get permission to abseil down the side of the Pears building in Hampstead.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Jill was trying to see if I'd be interested, but
Is that not one for you?
not really. It's like jumping out of perfectly serviceable aircraft. I just don't see the point.
No, I mean, if people enjoy it and they can raise money doing it, then I'm happy.
Oh, me too, yeah. Because they're very, apart from this massive one with the scanner, they've raised lots of money with these little things, don't they? Like the marathon.
We do. I mean, the marathon this year was incredible. So we raised £120,000.
Wow.
I say we.
Yeah.
Our runners raised £120,000 from their friends and family, which was an incredible amount of money. We've got people doing all sorts of challenges, you name it, from the slightly less exerting ones all the way through to people running multiple marathons for the charity. And as we were saying before, it's testament to the care they've received. Their love for the NHS is what's driving them, and lots of them say, when they're at mile 22 running the London Marathon and their legs are hurting and it's getting really tough, what carries them through is remembering the care that their loved ones received or the care that they received themselves, and they want to do it for the NHS. And that's really what makes this job fun for me, is hearing those stories and seeing people succeed.
There must be hundreds of those stories.
Oh, countless, absolutely countless stories. And anyone you talk to, whether I go and talk to a volunteer, on the front doors of one of the hospitals, whether I talk to someone who's fundraising for us, they've always got a story, and it's always one of positivity and of love and of their care for the NHS.
Amazing. I think it's a great job that you do, and I know quite a few of your team members, and I think they're all fabulous. They really do.
They are a wonderful bunch. They are wonderful.
They really
bunch.
are.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's not easy, really, to get people to come up with money, because times are short, aren't they? I mean, everyone's having a tough time.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And the cost of living crisis, I think, has definitely affected our fundraising. So it is just harder for people to put their hands in their pockets. We completely understand that. That's why we always say there are lots and lots of ways you can support the charity. You can give money, but you can also give time. You can be a volunteer. Lots and lots of people help us, for example, helping publicise the charity, whether that's at work or on their social media, and just getting the word out about things that we're doing. And we appreciate everything that everybody does for us, whether it's financial or giving time or just giving their support. And it's great to be able to be that conduit for people to show their love and support for the NHS.
Because we're currently looking for volunteers, aren't we?
We are always looking for volunteers, yes, yeah. So we've got around about 400 or so at the moment, but we can never have too many. There's always a lot of work to be done in the NHS.
So if you're lying in your hospital bed and thinking you'd like to help, this is very easy. You go to royalfreecharity.org /
just royalfreecharity.org will do it.
Oh, that'll do it.
Yeah, and then you can find out all the information about how to volunteer. You can find information about how to donate, events we're running, all sorts of stuff, as well as, of course, all the information about what we've done. So there's lots and lots of information on there about research that we funded, equipment that we've purchased, that sort of thing, if you want to understand more.
I think that's a very good idea. So that's what you do. Get onto that, and we need all the help you can give us. Volunteers are essential. It really makes things tick, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, they are the sort of secret second workforce within the hospitals. There are all sorts of jobs now which are being done almost exclusively by volunteers, which means, thankfully, that our hard-pressed clinical staff can really focus on patients.
Yeah. John, it's been very, very informative for me. I'd like to do it again in a few months' time.
I'd be delighted to come back.
We could do an update and see how things are going.
Yep.
I think it could be really fascinating.
Fantastic.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much indeed.
All the best.
Bye-bye.